Hey guys, I just wanted to come to you and talk about chapter 8. So, in the beginning of chapter 8, we see the hunters and Ralph come back from seeing the beast, and they tell Piggy and the Littlands about it. And Piggy's just totally in disbelief of this entire situation. Jack calls a meeting, he blows the conch awkwardly. During this meeting, Jack calls Ralph a a coward, and basically Jack's like, I should be the chief, and who wants to follow me? So basically the boys at this point have like an open decision to make, and choosing Jack is choosing savagery, bloodlust, all of those, like having fun, and choosing Ralph is choosing saying staying civil, keeping like a flat open mind about this, wanting to be rescued, putting that as a priority. And the boys, of course, like when they're openly asked in front of everyone else, choose what would be, or they make themselves appear that they're choosing what is right, which is Ralph, which is the civil side of things. But then what we see very quickly is that the boys start to disappear after this meeting. Jack leaves. He is humiliated. He's crying as he's leaving. And but the boys follow Jack. One by one, the boys on the island are disappearing. Maurice, Sam and Eric, they're just slowly going to follow Jack. And so basically Piggy and Ralph, they decide that it would be easiest for them to just stay on the beach and have a signal fire on the beach. So there's this lighting of the signal fire on the beach. The Litlands are very excited by this. A lot of them haven't seen fire in a while. And that's kind of like Piggy and Ralph's way of like being like, we'll be okay, we'll still be rescued. During this time, we see Simon, and Simon is doing what Simon does, which is kind of wander off by himself a little bit. And we know that Simon is like our character that we only see good come from, and he's also our character who's the fainter. He's the boy that faints a lot, so that's going to come into play later. And we also during this time see the hunters, and the hunters go for a hunt, and they take down a sow, which is a female pig, for the first time. And they do it in a very, very savage way. There's so much like thrill and bloodlust in the situation, and they celebrate the fact that they stab the pig in her rear end. And it's just like a very savage scene. And so what we see here is that Jack has established himself as a totalitarian. Whereas, Ralph's leadership was more of democracy. Everyone has a say. Like, we'll figure this out fairly. Like, Jack is like on a platform, like above the other boys. The other boys now that are following Jack are referred to as savages. And then also during all of this, we see Simon, and Simon has kind of like, he seems to be very dehydrated. He's wandered off into the woods by himself. And the hunters, actually, after they killed the sow, they decided to make a sacrifice to the beast. And so this sacrifice has to do with them sharpening a stick at both ends. They stick the sow's head. They cut the pig's head off, and they put it on one end of the stick, and then they shove the stick down into the ground. So imagine a dead pig's head that had been there in the heat for hours, and flies are gathering on it, and that is the Lord of the Flies. There's blood dribbling out of its mouth. I'm looking at page 137 right now. And the head is for the beast. It's a gift. So that's what Jack says. And so basically you have this like, and it describes the head remains there, dim-eyed, grinning faintly, blood blackened between the teeth. And it describes that, and that's the Lord of the Flies. That's the boy's sacrifice for the beast, and that's what become. That's what becomes the title of our book. Simon, in his dehydrated, fainting state, stumbles upon this Lord of the Flies in the woods, and he kind of hallucinates that the Lord of the Flies is talking to him. And that is how the chapter ends. Is you have Simon's like kind of like halfway like in and out of like being awake, and the pig's head is talking to him. So basically I think Simon's hallucinating most of this. But the pig says, and this is at the very end of chapter 8, I'm warning you, I'm going to get angry. Do you see? You're not wanted. Understand? You're going to have fun on this island. Understand? We're going to have fun on this island. So don't try it, my poor misguided boy, or else. So basically, it's very symbolic that the Lord of the Flies is saying this to Simon, because we recognize Simon as like our only child on this island that is good and wholesome. And Simon is being threatened by this sacrifice that the other boys left for the beast. And basically, I think that the Lord of the Flies here is threatening Simon's life, because they just want to have fun. And fun to Jack's group is the bloodlust, is the killing, is the chanting. That's their fun. And so that is the end of chapter 8, and I'll be back with you guys soon for chapter 9.